Hello everyone, and thank you for choosing my channel. Today we're going to be cooking a delicious pot roast. We're going to season that pot roast and we're going to put it right into the oven. Let's get started with your ingredients. First, you're going to start with your pot roast. I got mine from Kroger's. You can choose yours from any grocery store. For my seasonings, I'm going to use the pink Himalayan salt. Some people prefer to use the Celery seasoning. I'm trying to stay away from that, so I'm going to use the pink salt, but feel free to use sea salt or regular salt as well. Whatever salt you decide to use, just make sure that you season your roast very, very well. With cooking roast, you just want to be a little heavy on the salt. Onion powder, of course. Then you're going to go ahead and use Italian seasoning blend. You do not have to use the blend. You can actually just use rosemary. I do not have that on hand, so I'm going to go ahead and use the whole blend I have. You're going to go ahead and use some black pepper. You're also going to use some garlic powder. And parsley flakes make everything look beautiful. And of course, you're going to need the beef broth. I'm not going to use the whole thing of beef broth. I'm going to show you how I'm going to make it stretch and taste very good without using the whole bottle of beef broth. Now for your veggies, you're going to need 1 onion. And you're also going to need a bag of carrots. I like to use the smallest carrots I can find, which are the petite carrots. You can use any carrot of choice. You're also going to use a bag of red skin potatoes. You can use whatever potatoes you like to choose. I'm going to use the petite. You're also going to use 2 to 3 celeries. It's your choice. And then back on the potatoes, whatever potatoes you do decide to use, just make sure you chop them up if you use the large ones so you can have enough room in your pot. Now I want to take this time out to let you guys know that if you are enjoying this video, that you hit the like button and you also subscribe to my channel. I want to go ahead and get started with cleaning my roast. Now we want to go ahead and start rinsing our pot roast. I like to start cutting some of that excess fat off my roast. I believe that the more fat you take off, the more tender it's going to be when it's time for it to be done. And I also want to go ahead and put it in a bowl. My bowl has sea salt in it, and I'm just going to let that soak. I'm going to let that soak in my bowl for about 15-20 minutes. I just want to get the excess residue off, especially in the time that we're in now. It's not going to hurt you to take time out to clean your meat. So while that's soaking, let's go ahead and get into chopping our celery. So for your celery, you just want to go ahead and chop it up. You don't want to make the pieces too big where it tastes very strong, but then you don't want to make it too small where you can't taste it once everything has been cooked inside the roast. So very simple, nothing hard. Just chop your celery up how you prefer it. Go ahead and start slicing your onion. As you can see, I went ahead and sliced my potatoes. They're already petite, so you just want to cut it once down the middle, and then that's it, you're done. Just want to make sure I got everything. Now you can take a paper towel and get some of that excess water off. I'm just going to rub in some pink Himalayan salt, and then I have all my seasonings that I showed you in the beginning. I have it in a measuring cup, and I'm just going to season my roast front and back, and I'm just putting a little extra seasoning on it because once I start to fry it, some of that seasoning is going to burn off. So you just want to make sure you rub everything in. Okay, this is that old school cooking, honey. You want to make sure that you have a cast iron pan. If you don't have it, you can just use whatever you have. Then you want to go ahead and coat your pan with olive oil or regular cooking oil. It's your preference, whatever you choose. Now I recommend that you use tongs if you have them, so you can sear the roast on each side. I know if I use a fork sometimes, the roast continues to fall down, and I don't like to keep poking at my meat. So if you have the tongs, go ahead and control your roast and sear it on each side. And then I went ahead and sliced my roast in a couple pieces because the roast was so huge. I didn't want it to take over my pot. And I can just smell the seasonings that's coming from this roast. Guys, this roast smells so good. Guys, this roast came out perfect. It's seared on each side just the way I like it. I went ahead and put onions on the bottom of the pan, and then I set my roast on top. And then I'm gonna go also heavy on the onions. I'm gonna put the onions on top of the roast. I'm gonna put the onions on the side of the roast. I'm gonna put the onions everywhere. I like the aroma that it gives, and I also like the flavor of the onions. It's just everything working together with the seasoning and the onions. I just think it's perfect. Now, you don't have to put these many onions in at once or at all. It's up to you. Guys, please modify this recipe if you want to add or take away. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just the way I do things. I'm just making it how I like it. Also, I want to go ahead and take some of those celery pieces that I chopped up, and I want to start placing them in the pan as well. Celery is very, very hard. It's going to take some time for it to loosen up. I like the flavor that the celery gives off too with the onions together. So this is just something I do. Some people like to put the celery in when they put the potatoes and the carrots in. It's all up to you. And then I'm going to show you how to make the broth or put the beef broth in. I just don't pour everything in. That's just not what I do, because I feel like if you're seasoning and searing and then you just take that broth and pour it right on, it was very pointless. So guys, this is how I make my beef broth sauce. I don't like to just use the watery beef broth. I take the drippings from the cast iron pan that I use for the roast, and I take all-purpose flour, and I do 1 cup of beef broth, and then I'm gonna mix that up. You can use a hand tool or you can just use the blender. You want to go ahead and pour everything over your roast. You want to pour it on the side and you want to pour it on the top. Look how creamy that looks. That's going to be so delicious, guys. It's going to give you like that creamy gravy type base. Now, if you're looking for something more looser, I recommend that you just go ahead and pour your beef broth in and just give it a little bit of a seasoning. But for this one, you don't even need any extra seasoning because the drippings from that sear pan that we use, it's all in there. This is going to be delish. Okay guys, just to make sure that you get it all over your roast. If you don't have enough, just simply make a little bit more. Now I cooked this in the oven for about 2 hours on 310. Look at that. Look how thick that sauce is. Look at the onions. I'm just pouring everything on my roast, just making sure that I'm just covering the top with the sauce. This is the time where you want to go ahead and put your additional veggies in. You want to go ahead and add your carrots and your onions and your potatoes. And if you want to add your celery in at this time, you can go ahead and do that. And then you can put this in the oven for another 1.5 hours or until your veggies are nice and soft. So after 3.5 hours later, this is the finished product. Look how delicious this roast looks, guys. I'm so proud of myself. And I hope you guys like this recipe. Let's get this roast on a plate. If you guys want to know how I made this complete meal, just click the description box below and you'll see the additional videos. I thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.